right, welcome to the meeting, the regular meeting of the Union County Board of Chosen Freeholders. If everyone would take their seats, we'll start. All right, and this is the Freeholder meeting of Thursday, May 16th, 2019. At this time, I'll call the meeting to order. And Clerk of the Board, would you please call the roll?
Freeholder Estrada.
Present.
Freeholder Garrettson.
Here.
Freeholder Granados.
Here.
Freeholder Hudak. Freeholder Palmieri Muded.
Here.
Freeholder Staten.
Here.
Freeholder Williams.
Here.
Vice Chairman Mirabella. Chair Kowalski.
Here.
Chair, you have 7 freeholders present.
Thank you, Clerk. Would you please lead us in the prayer and salute to the flag? Please stand.
Humbly we ask God, the giver of peace and the lover of charity, to give the entire family of nations true agreement with his will and to grant the light of his spirit on all who work for justice and peace.
Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Clerk, would you please read the Statement of Compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act?
The chair wishes to announce that, pursuant to the requirements of New Jersey statutes annotated, Title 10, Chapter 4, Section 10 of the Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting of the Board of Chosen Freeholders of the County of Union has been given by mailing the annual meeting schedule for the year 2019, along with periodic changes necessitated by circumstances, to the newspapers circulating within the County of Union who are designated to receive such notice, and by posting the annual meeting schedule for the year 2019 in the Administration Building, and further by filing the annual meeting schedule for the year 2019 with the Office of the County Clerk.
Thank you. Before we get into the business part of the meeting, we have some presentations for the young writers who've submitted poems for the Arbor Day Poetry Contest. So Freeholder Staten, would you please join me for the presentations? It's wonderful to see the efforts that our young people make, especially in appreciating the environment. And every year, many young people across the county write poems about trees. We have 4th to 8th graders here, and we have resolutions for them, as well as a small check for the winners. So I'm going to call the students up by grade, and then we can take a picture, and if any of the students are willing to read the poems, the first place winners, we would love to hear the poems. So you can catch your breath and prepare yourselves.
Okay.
Bill Staten.
Shakira Darrow, Mountain Park School in Berkeley Heights. Come on up.
Come on up, Shakira.
Sharika.
Oh, very good, Sharika. Okay, congratulations. That's for you. And if you can just stand here for a minute, and we'll bring up the other people in your grade. Okay. And Max Marco from St. Bartholomew School in Scotch Plains, 2nd place for Hello Tree. And in 1st place, we have Adriana Fernandez
my pear tree. Congratulations.
Oh, look at that. Jeez.
The tree blew slowly, calm and carefree. The flowers bloom on the pear tree. The bright orange sap rolled down the bark. The tree stood tall in the middle of the park. The sweet pear fell into the shade. This is perfect for the picnic I made. As I climb the tree higher and higher up, when I look down, I can see my blue teacup. As I climb down, I feel the leaves swarming around me with power. I look around and I see a pink flower. There are many other trees as far as the eye can see, but if you ask me, the best is the pear tree. To save the trees, you must do your part, because seeing that tall pear tree warms my heart.
Wow.
Thank you very much.
Great.
There you go. All right. Take that check.
All right. Now we're going on to 5th grade. Third place is Leonardo Quinones Ruggiero at Lincoln School in Garwood. And he wrote, and Leonardo's poem is Splendid Seasons. Next is Declan Corrigan from Holy Trinity in Westfield, and second place for his poem Little Tree.
Ariana Caban from Jefferson Elementary in Westfield. Beautiful trees. And she was our first place winner. So congratulations. And if you would please read your poem.
The watchful eye of many. As I glisten, I dance in the wind, with my head up high. I am the wind is me. My branches sing as I dance. The birds chirp that lay on my shoulder, because I am one of many. I am a tree. I bring shelter, I bring shade. I am home. My reflection shines in the water. I wave, I blossom, I bloom. I am loved by many, because I am one of many. I am a tree. I am warmth, I am fire. You keep me safe, I am life. I am happiness. You breathe me, I breathe you. We need each other, because I am one of many. I am a tree.
And we have our Westfield Freeholder that would like to stand with the children from Westfield.
Tighten up, tighten up.
Okay, and from the sixth grade, third place is Annalise Zakaria from Holy Trinity in Westfield, and her poem is Spring Trees.
Next, we'll have Richard Howard from Lincoln School in Garwood, and his poem was Differences. Second place, sixth grade.
First place from Lincoln School is Adam Shupak, and the poem is Fall Woods, sixth grade.
All right.
So would you like to step forward and read this?
As I walk through the fall woods, the wind blows in my face. I look at the ground as the marvelous yellow and brown fall leaves dance in the wind. They dance in circles, up, down, in every direction. As I walk, I can smell the sweet, savory, dry sap slowly dripping down from the ancient bark of the old tree, drip by drip. Another leaf falls, only to end up with his friends at the never-ending dancing pile of leaves. I come across a lake with crystal clear water. I can see the small, gleaming silver fish swimming happily through the water. I look up at the trees overshadowing the lake. The biggest tree is a giant, towering into the sky. I keep walking, leaving the woods alone, only for them to revert back to their natural ways. As I walk back home, I think about how this forest must have looked long ago.
All right.
Say about there, right? Don't move.
And this is our seventh grade, and we have Caroline Kircher from Edison Intermediate School in Westfield.
Second place is Jackie Link, also from Edison Intermediate School in Westfield, and the poem is a tree about trees. And first place for seventh grade is Alyssa Schlauberg from Lincoln School in Garwood, and her poem is The Seasons of Trees.
On summer days we play till dark, new friendships begin to spark. Townspeople climb up to see the astounding fireworks from atop an old tree. Shady trees provide us with air, with colorful branches they give our town flair. When it is time to return to school, the weather here shall begin to cool. Extensive branches lose their leaves, all the color is stolen by icy thieves. New resolutions will be made, a groundhog says spring will not be delayed. Beautiful flowers come out of hiding, frigid temperatures begin rising. The children come out to play, it's time to put our coats away.
Now we're up to 8th grade. So for 3rd place, we have Mackenzie Cruz, Lincoln School in Garwood, the Blue Bird's Tree.
In 2nd place, we have Aiden Paradis from Lincoln School in Garwood, and that the poem is Who We Are. And in 1st place, from the Deerfield Middle School in Mountainside, Kelly Hanratty, and the poem is The Lucky Sprout.
Okay. There once was a park with no trees, only a few pieces of metal and some concrete. The children had played and had never really known what it was like to frolic under a tree. The people had planted several seeds before the concrete, but it always ended up in misery. The children whined, "Oh, why won't it grow?" The parents answered, "Oh, honey, I don't know." Until one day, the concrete began to crack, and a little sprout came bursting from the ash. It was something, but not nothing. Boy, it was a tree. This had become a miracle for the children to see. Smiles had bloomed on their faces, and laughter had filled the air. This tree was their hero, taking away their despair. Soon enough, the tree had become as tall as a building, like the one where the children's mothers had worked in. It swayed with elegance and stood with pride. This tree was definitely one of a kind. From its powerful roots, holding it straight, all the way to its rich-colored leaves, making it vibrant. The children swung from its branches and hugged its trunk with great desire. This park was now admired. But the children grew up and were too old for the park. The tree was aged and was slumped over, reaching away from the stars. The town came together and decided that it was time. They knew that their old friend was going to die. They had a ceremony and said their goodbyes. They cried for some time and embraced one another. They cut down the tree, and as it fell, its crash was not the only noise in the park. The sound of many sprouts shooting up from beneath the concrete overpowered the sound of the fallen tree. The leaves that had covered the ground, which were once a part of the fallen tree, had contained seeds, which must have snuck through the concrete, causing some new trees to succeed. The park had become a soon-to-be forest with a fallen tree right at the heart. But years later, those children's children would play with joy and laughter in a park filled of trees with a wooden bench made from the remains of the first sprouted tree, placed in the center to remind them all that one little tree started it all.
Mom,
do you want to come up and get a picture?
So thank you to all of the students who participated and your teachers and families, and I hope you all continue to write and enjoy poetry and enjoy nature. So if the children would like to leave, since it's a school night, we will all understand. We have freeholder business to do tonight, but once again, I thank you for participating. Thank you for being here tonight.
thank you, Chief. Thank you, Chief. She will lose the phone. That's it. No more
I
phone.
recognize one of our families from Summit, who we saw in the courthouse for a happy celebration earlier in the year. So congratulations to all of you. Thank you. So on to our business of the evening. May I have a motion to approve communications? Thank you. Freeholder Granados, may we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Freeholder Staton is second. Clerk of the board, please call the roll.
Freeholder Estrada.
Yes.
Freeholder Garrettson.
Yes.
Freeholder Granados.
Aye.
Freeholder Palmieri Muedad.
Aye.
Freeholder Staton.
Yes.
Freeholder Williams.
Aye.
Chair Kowalski.
Yes.
Chair, you have 7 votes in the affirmative.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Freeholder Granados, second,
Second.
please. Seconded by Freeholder Staton. Clerk of the board, please call the roll.
Freeholder Estrada.
Yes, with an exception on number 4, which is February 7th, 2019. I'd like to abstain on that one.
Freeholder Garrettson.
Yes, with the exemption on 5, 12, and 13.
Freeholder Granados.
Aye at all.
Freeholder Palmieri Muedad. Freeholder Staton.
Yes to all except number 5, February 14th, 2019. I'd like to abstain, please.
Freeholder Williams.
Aye to all.
And Chair Kowalski.
Yes.
Chair, you have 7 votes in the affirmative, with the exception of the following minutes. February 7th, agenda setting session with 6 votes in the affirmative and 1 abstention. February 14th, a regular meeting with 5 votes in the affirmative and 2 abstentions. April 4th, agenda setting session with 6 votes in the affirmative and 1 abstention. And the April 11th, regular meeting with 6 votes in the affirmative and 1 abstention.
Thank you.
Chair,
yes,
if you don't
Chair.
mind.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes.
With your approval, I would like to join in as a co-sponsor of 2019-414 resolution.
With pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
And anyone else who'd like to join on resolution number 414?
Chair, I thought that was going to be from the full board, so I'll join that as well. I'm not
Okay. Great. Thank you, Freeholder Garrettson. So, clerk, you have
Chair, duly noted.
noted that. Okay. I know there's a large group of people here to talk about the PSE&G electric poles, and we do have a resolution about that. So we're going to make some changes to our normal procedure to try and accommodate everyone and allow the freeholders to have the opportunity to hear all of your opinions. As always, when we get into the comment period, no one may speak more than once. Because there is a large number of people here, our time limit will be reduced to 3 minutes per person instead of our normal 5. We have 2 microphones, one over here and one over there. After I finish explaining, maybe whoever wants to comment could line up at the microphone so we can move along at a reasonable speed. We are going to ask that people who want to comment on resolutions other than the PSE&G comment first. So we'll go through the rest of the resolution comments first and then move to PSE&G resolution comments. And as noted in the freeholder bylaws, we're going to allow all Union County residents the opportunity to speak. And I want to just remind everybody, I don't think this will be a problem. Everyone here has been very polite so far, and as far as I know at other meetings. But if you're not at the microphone, you may not address the board or call out from the audience. And please, so that we may move along quickly, do not applaud during or after another speaker, because it slows down the process. So thank you in advance for your cooperation. And now we will, and when you come up to the microphone, please state your name and town of residence and the resolution that you want to address. We will have, we will show a yellow card when you get to the 2-minute time, and then a red card when you reach your limit of 3 minutes to stop. So I'll now ask for, excuse me just a moment. Sorry, before we get to comments, I need to ask for a motion for suspension of the rules.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Moved by Freeholder Granados and second by Freeholder Garrettson. Freeholder Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Freeholder Estrada.
Yes.
Freeholder Garrettson.
Yes.
Freeholder Granados.
Aye.
Freeholder Palmieri Muedad.
Aye.
Freeholder Staton.
Yes.
Freeholder Williams.
Aye.
And Chair Kowalski.
Yes.
Chair, you have 7 votes in the affirmative to suspend the rules.
Thank you. So we will move forward with comments. Oh, excuse me just a second. Do you have something else to say? Okay. We'll move forward with comments on non-PSE resolutions, and then after those comments are finished, we'll move to PSE&G. So if you'd like to speak, would you please approach the microphone and remember to tell us your name and town of residence.
Good evening, Chair Kowalski, ladies and gentlemen, the Freeholder Board, Bruce Patterson, Garwood. You're suspending the rules, but normally you don't do that. That I didn't understand your format on that. And I apologize for not being here in your agenda-setting meeting. And also I noticed the color lights, I guess they're broken, right? Is that what you're saying? And so he has the color cards, that's what it is? All right, moving along. Page 2, number 390. I'm looking at the agenda, and again, this is a very light agenda, which I appreciate. You're not spending the taxpayers' money willy-nilly like normal. The highest one is $367,000 I see on 390. I'm just wondering, I guess the question about this is, you're saying with an option to extend for 2 12-month periods in the amount of $367,000. I would assume that option that you're talking about is not included in that $367,000, and if not, then what are those options going to cost? On page 3, 401, there's a contract extension given to Oxford Electrical for, I guess, 24 consecutive months in the amount not to exceed $200,000. I'm just wondering what the original contract was. What was the dollar amount, I'm asking. On page 4, there's a contract settlement on the top, 403. The county obviously is going to be settling with whatever the case is, Valerie Fishback versus Union County. I would like you to at least give me some details on that. And I noticed the county is contributed $246,000, and the remainder is from the JIF, the Joint Insurance Fund, for about $130,000. And I'm just wondering why we have to pay 2/3 and JIF only pays 1/3. I'd like an explanation of that, since we're paying the brunt of the settlement. And on page 5, you're supporting increase in funding for New Jersey Transit. There is no dollar amount there. Hopefully somebody could explain what the increase in the funding is this year that you're supporting? I think it's roughly $24 million or something, but I'd like to, since you're supporting it, I'd like to know at least what the dollar amount is supporting, because that's taxpayer money. And 414, right below that, just a light discussion on that. I know I'm supposed to talk later, but I just want people to understand, yes, when they get up to talk about the PSE&G, resolution is number 414, which they have to speak for. But you mentioned they're speaking once, but there actually is a public speaking period after you vote on these resolutions, and they can speak again towards that, especially if their comment period goes over the 3 minutes. They can further finish commenting. It's a public portion. Great card.
Okay, thank you. Just about the suspension of the rules, it's because we changed the normal comments period from 5 to 3 because of the number of people here. Director Anderson, would you like to talk about resolution number 390?
So to answer that question, so the contract is new with the vendor, and we have an option. We're going to see how they are for the first year. Their total contract for 1 year is $367,000. With an option to renew, that means we're staying at the same price, $367,000 for year 2 and 3.
Thank you. Director Sherifazi, on number 401, please.
Good evening.
Good evening.
The initial total contract amount was $230,780.
Thank you.
Welcome.
County Council on 403, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. This was a personal injury matter. It involved multiple fractures of the plaintiff's leg, surgery and scarring, as a result of which the recommendation from County Council and private counsel was to accept a settlement offer of the $375. And the breakdown is based upon the fact that through our policy, we are responsible, we meaning the county, is responsible for the first $250,000 of any such settlement, and the insurance company then carries anything over and above that, whether it's $130,000 or if it was $1 million, they'd be responsible for any excess.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And on the New Jersey Transit, the state has not passed its budget yet, so we don't have the exact number on this. We do support increase in funding to New Jersey Transit because New Jersey Transit was underfunded for many years, and anyone who takes the train or commutes knows that the trains and buses need an infusion of cash and personnel, and the governor is working on that with the legislature, and we support that. Any other comments on any other resolutions other than 414? Okay, seeing none, then we'll move on to comments on resolution 414. You'll see that there's a brief there's a summary of that resolution here. The resolution, I'm not going to read the whole thing. It basically says that the freeholders support the work of the municipalities in seeking more input and changes from PSE&G. The residents of Union County communities who live along these transmission lines, as well as our local governments, have serious concerns about potential health, public safety, property, and environmental problems which may go hand in hand with this project. The targeted route for these utility lines is along busy roadways, through neighborhoods near schools and places of worship. The danger of these power lines coming down in an auto accident or act of nature is of concern to our residents. The new poles are treated with pentachlorophenol, which can be carcinogenic. And residents are very concerned that these higher poles will pose a greater danger to motorists and homeowners. Therefore, residents and elected officials in the municipalities along these transmission routes are expressing great concerns that these power lines are a serious risk to homeowners, business owners, and families. Union County has limited authority in this matter. The courts in New Jersey have allowed the state's Board of Public Utilities to supersede local control when a project is deemed necessary for the service, convenience, and welfare of the public. In this case, we believe that PSE&G has failed to make the case that this project will improve the health and safety of our residents and of the environment in which we all live. And therefore, the Union County Board of Chosen Freeholders stands strongly with our municipal leaders and concerned residents, and we expect the following of PSE&G: to justify its reasons for not running these power lines more safely and effectively underground and in different locations, such as along existing rail lines, and to explore any other options that would keep the lines away from residences and businesses, to maintain an open dialogue with this body and our municipal partners, to consider other pole preservatives, and to inform citizens of any other potential hazards posed by this project. And we will provide copies of this resolution to PSE&G, the Board of Public Utilities, and our delegation to the State, Senate, and Assembly, and to our municipal partners. So that's the resolution, basically. And if you'd like to comment, please come up to the microphone.
Thank you and good evening. My name is Justin Quinn. I live at 316 Walnut Avenue in Cranford, and I am a member of No High Voltage Cranford. It is a privilege to appear before this board, and I thank you for the opportunity. I am joined by neighbors from Cranford, Westfield, and Garwood, and by colleagues from No Monster Power Lines in Westfield. We're here to request your opposition to PSE&G's proposal to run high voltage transmission lines and monster chemical poles down residential streets. This raises significant health concerns for Cranford residents and threatens to irreparably erase beautiful tree-lined streets. Neither should be jeopardized, since we've received no data supporting the need for this project, and regardless, there's a viable alternative in the Conrail line that minimizes any such impact, not just Cranford. I think you have probably addressed the concern with Penta. I don't think I need to go any further. I think you guys gripped that well. I do have one comment about the county roads, so I'll get to that quickly. And I just, for the record, I understand, and as a lawyer, can deeply appreciate that the board believes it has limited authority here and may lack jurisdiction. Respectfully, I think that's based on the BPU's decision in Ridgewood, but that decision was not subjected to de novo review by the appellate division, and frankly, has minimal, if any, precedential value. But just to be clear, we're not raising a jurisdictional issue. We're raising core principles of property and contract law regarding the county's right-of-way. These principles prohibit PSE&G from making alterations that place a greater burden on the right-of-way than was originally contemplated and interfering with residents' ability to enjoy their properties. And that is precisely what is at issue here and what gives you the ability to push back. The greater burdens are manifest and conceded. First, the toxic poles will measure up to 30 feet taller. Second, they will be buried deeper in the ground, likely connecting to the water table. Third, they will be wider in circumference and greater in weight. Fourth, they will have additional cross arms. Fifth, the transmission lines will double the current voltage. Sixth, the EMF emissions will be increased dramatically. And seven, if a pole falls, the likelihood of severe injury or worse is increased. These added burdens are legally significant. Here's what one judge concluded when confronting the same situation and required the removal of the utility pole. Quote, "The new pole is not the same. It is higher and larger in circumference than those which had preceded it. The additional cross arms and the high tension wires put an additional burden upon the land. The more numerous the cross arms and wires, the greater nuisance the pole is to the premises before which it is erected. Other courts, including the U.S. Supreme Court, agree. And why? Because transmission lines, quote, impose greater burdens on the underlying right-of-way and, quote, endanger abutting property owners." I'm sorry, I'm out of time.
Thank you. If you'd like to submit the entirety of your comments to the clerk so that we can look at the full text, you can do that.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is David Krieger. I live at 728 Shacamaxon Drive in Westfield. PSEG's initially proposed and now scrapped 69 kV route was set to run past my house. That route, which zigzagged through a wholly residential neighborhood, made no sense. It impacted 31 streets and more than 500 homes, going directly past Edison Middle School, our town pool, and our football stadium. An impassioned group of concerned citizens formed No Monster Power Lines Westfield in opposition to that route. We did everything we could in opposition, including garnering over 2,500 signatures in an online petition and encouraging everyone to speak out to the Westfield Town Council, which resulted in 3 standing room only marathon meetings. While I'm grateful that the initial route in Westfield has been put to rest, as I believe, like our friends at No High Voltage Cranford, that the most harm for these projects is caused in residential neighborhoods, as a Westfield resident, I remain concerned about the harms of this project to my community. Many of us fear PSEG will target our residential community in a future attempt to expand its transmission lines. You see, the financial incentives for transmission lines is so lucrative, these projects are known within the utility industry as, quote, FERC candy. But first, I want to clarify some misconceptions about legal authority. Many cite the BPU's decision in Ridgewood as somehow binding for this project. A 5-minute, now 3-minute speech is not enough time to list all the reasons Ridgewood is distinguishable and not controlling here. But to name one, more recently, the BPU unanimously struck down a plan for JCP&L to place high voltage lines in Monmouth County because the project was not necessary. PSEG has provided no specifics about the necessity of the current plan and has leveraged the power outages that followed Hurricane Sandy to somehow justify this project. The vast majority of outages that follow area storms are a result of downed local distribution lines that succumb to high winds and fallen trees. Nothing about this proposal solves this vulnerability. It is widely reported that the population of our state has remained flat or decreased, and with many homes now using energy-efficient projects or solar power, I question the need for additional high-voltage capacity. My friend and fellow member of No Monster Power Lines, Pam Kevelson, will adjust our proposed terms for the resolution.
Thank you.
To remind everybody, we have 2 microphones while somebody's speaking. If somebody wants to line up at the next one, we could move it along faster for everybody.
Hi, good evening.
Good
My name
evening.
is Pam Kevelson. I live at 633 Shacamaxon in Westfield. I'm David's neighbor, and this line was also going to go right past my house originally, and we don't think that any residential neighborhood should have to have that. Continuing David's statement, weeks ago, PSE&G advised us that running these lines down railroad tracks was not possible. Recently, they changed course, now claim they're looking into following the existing 230 kV line between Aldine and Front Street substations via the Conrail tracks and Ashbrook Reservation. We truly hope that PSE&G's due diligence is done in good faith, as the prospect of this route is encouraging, if this project has to happen at all. We hope this isn't a check-the-box exercise for PSE&G to say, well, we tried, or walk away from the solution because it's costly or requires regulatory hurdles. We like to cite just a few of the reasons that PSE&G has caused distrust. In many municipalities, they began work and completed similar projects with little or no advance notice. This was about to happen in Westfield. In both Cranford and Westfield, their workshops were designed to divide us, not provide consistent information. PSE&G has made statements that just don't pass the sniff test, such as it believes the project will have no permanent impact on property values. Does anyone actually believe this? I hope PSE&G proves us wrong and approves this alternate route for the entirety of the existing 230 kV line between the Aldine and Front Street stations. In closing, No Monster Power Lines requests that the freeholders adopt the following 5 general principles, largely shared by our friends at No High Voltage Cranford, in a resolution applicable to any roads located within Union County for this and any future high voltage transmission proposal. 1. High voltage above ground lines must not be in wholly residential streets. If there is truly no practicable alternative, there needs to be sufficient setback. Where practicable, high voltage transmission lines should follow the same route as any existing high voltage transmission lines. 3. high-voltage power lines in commercial areas should be as minimally intrusive to the public welfare as practicable. 4, consideration for undergrounding high-voltage lines at utility expense should always be given, and a cost estimate for undergrounding should also be provided. 5, utilities should provide written notice well in advance of any planned high-voltage projects with sufficient detail and an opportunity for legitimate public comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Kat Dambola. I'm a resident of Cranford, here to also speak and share concerns over the PSE&G project. Thank you for the opportunity. Simply stated, the residents of Union County deserve better. We deserve better than a public utility spreading misinformation about a project that will directly impact the health and well-being of residents, the value of our properties that we work so hard to maintain, and the beauty and aesthetic of our towns. We deserve better than a hasty and short-sighted proposal put forth by PSE&G when much better alternatives exist, as we've outlined today. Make no mistake, PSE&G is embarking on this project to encourage future revenue opportunities. Any minor benefit to county residents is a very far distant second in their strategy. We, the residents, have spent countless hours researching and engaging with various experts and consultants in the industry. I can say I never in my wildest thoughts imagined I would know what I know today about penta, about EMF, about magnetic radiation exposure, and even about dangers of emerging technology like 5G, all of these things which can cause serious health ailments, particularly with children. I will say I was very moved by all of the beautiful poetry from the children earlier today. I actually found it very fitting because we are here to protect them and as well as the environment. So honestly, that was very appropriate. I have a 3-year-old, I have a baby on the way. I do everything in my power to protect my children from health risks. PSE&G is ultimately taking the choice to protect my family out of my hands, and it's going into the pockets of their shareholders, plain and simple. We need all of you to push this resolution, and if for some reason they decline the alternative, we're really going to need everyone to push forward even harder to make sure that this project does not go down residential routes. The residents do not want to watch this critical issue be, maybe passed back and forth between town officials, between county officials, or even across political parties. Everyone needs to work together to solve this issue. There are significant risks and impacts to the residents that everyone is sworn here to serve. We are relying on you to be vocal, to be engaged and responsive, and to fight with us against this project. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
If I have extra seconds, can I actually pass them to someone that already spoke?
Sorry, it doesn't work that way.
Not Congress.
Okay.
That's fine.
Yeah, we can hear you. Okay.
Hello everyone, my name is Mona Purse. I live at 9 Normandy Drive in Westfield. I am part of the No Monster Power Lines Westfield. I actually do not live on any of the planned routes, but along with many of my friends and neighbors, we strongly support those who are possibly going to be impacted. We also stand in solidarity with our Cranford friends. We care about this project because lots of the negative impacts that many people have already spoken about tonight. So I'm going to concentrate on this one aspect that I find most appalling throughout the process with my contact with PSE&G. As most of you already know, there was virtually no communication from PSE&G about the project in Westfield. Supposedly, the project was going to start on March 13th, but the residents on those routes received the letter on March 12th. So you tell me, are they seriously on notifying the stakeholders, or are they trying all they can to prevent us from knowing anything, so deprive us the opportunity to raise questions, let alone to have any meaningful actions against it? And then, when they conducted the so-called workshop in Westfield, they came with a great air of arrogance and canned answers. There was no interest in their part to have an open communication. Let me give you an example. When I voiced my concern that property values would plunge on the impacted route, one of the reps told me that it was my responsibility to do thorough research before I buy a house, so as to avoid projects that could impact my house value. Seriously, the initial route was in a 100% residential area. There should be no such projects happening in those areas. And on top of that, what amount of research would let me know ahead of time that PSENG will march down on my street to impose on such a project? So this shows the company has no interest to be accountable for their actions. They have no interest to ever have communication with the communities that will be impacted by their projects. Not in the past, not right now, and certainly not in the future if we do not call them out and put a stop on their behavior and attitude. And thank you very much for hearing me out. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity. My name is Burim Rejai, and I own a out-of-hand pizza on South Avenue in Westfield. My family and I opened up the place exactly a year ago, and if somebody had told me that this PSEG project will take place in such an arbitrary and arrogant manner, I wouldn't purchase the business. I am not opposing the upgrade. Let me be clear. I'm opposing the manner the project is being handled and unfolded. I oppose the fact that this project of such magnitude is unfolded so nonchalantly with a total disregard of our concerns and input. How will the proposed project impact my business? The profit margin in food industry, for those who don't know, is very, very thin. And it takes only a small percentage of my customers to stop visiting us or supporting us for us to close down. If this project moves ahead as proposed and above the ground, it will make sure to turn customers away. I have two major concerns with 75-foot poles. My first concern plays at the fact that when PSEG refers to South Avenue as business and commercial zone, is done solely for the purpose of dehumanizing the neighborhood. How is it okay for South Avenue to have these power lines overhead, but not the residential neighborhoods along the first proposed route? My other concern is that my business will be impacted directly in short term and long term. In short term, while construction will take place, it will impact my business directly because there is a power pole right in front of my business entrance. Am I supposed to close down during construction? If it took PSEG 13 months to replace a light bulb on closest street light and 15 months to repair 3 deco lights, how long it will take for the whole pole to be replaced? How many customers will be turned away due to the construction? In long term, the overhead wires and power cables will create a stigma for the whole South Avenue, ugly with a chance of radiation. Ugly with a chance of radiation will not be compatible with a grand master plan to be revealed to rejuvenate the South Avenue, but it will definitely lead to plywood boarded up storefronts. Ugly with a chance of radiation will impact directly the hiring and retaining talent to work on stigmatic South Avenue. Besides loss of customers, my per head costs will increase. To summarize, we don't oppose upgrading. Please ask them to use alternative. Best option is burying the lines. Request and require that PSEG works with the town. This project is as controversial as they come. Therefore, transparency is crucial to have PSEG and residents work together. PSEG committing to the upgrade at their own least expense to them, and then blackmailing us, the customers, to pay if we want it done properly is nothing else but a racketeering. Perhaps letters S and E on PSEG stand for Soprano Enterprise. Let me be clear, no resident is opposing the upgrade, but there are alternatives to project that may be viable for all costs. Please bear in mind.
Thank you. Should we switch microphones? Have one of the aides step forward, or somebody in the back. Sir, would you please just test that and make sure the microphone's working?
Testing.
Oh, right. Okay. I'm sorry. It seemed to die out on the last speaker, so I want to make sure we hear you.
All right.
Thank you.
My name is Jerome Fader. I live at 789 Knollwood Terrace in Westfield, where I've lived for more than 30 years. I thank the freeholders for the resolution 414 and for their interest for the support and interest in the area. I wanted to, I'm an electrical engineer, and I wanted to talk a little bit about, I'm not an expert in health effects of fields, but I wanted to talk about a report from the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences that was prepared, and submitted to Congress. And just a few quotes. One of the, the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences suggests that the power industry continue its current practice of siting power lines to reduce exposures and continue to explore ways to reduce the creation of magnetic fields around transmission and distribution lines without creating new hazards. And this is essentially a lot of the core of the Freeholder resolution. There's been a fairly consistent pattern of increased risk of two types of leukemia, and as part of the motivation for this. Also, shift to burying the line. Generally, when the lines are buried, the area affected by the magnetic fields is smaller. I mean, it's not a simple issue, but in general, that's particularly as you move out some distance, it's a preferable technique. And so, whatever is done, it's preferable to have the lines buried.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Teresa Bowers. I live at 423 Lexington Avenue in Cranford. I've attended each of the No Power Line meetings we've had, starting with our town council, and then again 2 weeks ago when PSE&G did the Cranford version of their community information session, which, as the lady said, was not an information session. A couple things I wanted to say. I am a nurse practitioner. I have a doctorate in nursing practice. I actually teach down the street at Trinitas School of Nursing, and I know how to read research. Even with that, I cannot call myself an expert. I looked at a multitude of studies with hundreds of references done in the National Cancer Institute and the National Institutes of Health. With that amount of research, there is something there to consider. Most of the studies do not show anything statistically significant in relation to a direct causation, particularly with childhood cancers, but that is where the majority of the research has focused. Again, most of the research studies also talk about distance and location. So the previous gentleman speaking about lines being underground is absolutely a factor, as is when you look at the route in Cranford, and one of the first speakers spoke about the route in Westfield going by schools, as far as also homes. But I was driving yesterday along Walnut Avenue, and the classrooms are literally 30 feet from the power lines. I myself, during the information session, asked them about specifically putting it underground. And actually this was a comment also that happened at the town council meeting, that they would have to pass that cost onto the consumer, which I shared with our town council, that is a dog whistle. If in fact they have to share it amongst thousands of residents of the state of New Jersey, we're talking about mere dollars. But when you use that kind of language, you are trying to push people away from their focus. And secondly, when we spoke to them about using the Conrail lines, their answer was it would be difficult for them to get in at night, therefore being impractical. I said, well, that was very unfortunate for them. And maybe I should make it difficult for them to get to the power lines by my house that I paid lots of money for and expect to live with my child and all of my neighbors and their children living in Cranford. I know that you yourself, Chairman Pearson, you grew up in Cranford. I looked at some of your bios and saw that many of you are involved in infrastructure issues. So while we definitely appreciate your supporting the resolution, we will hope that you'll work with us and our own township councils to try to push back on PSE&G and put in place things that need to be there. True scientific research, absolute community forums where experts are allowed to speak and answer and ask and answer questions. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Richard Hurley. I live at 345 Walnut Avenue in Cranford. In addition to living along the impacted route, I also serve as the president of the Cranford Education Association, and I'm here tonight in both roles. First, I'd like to thank all of you for taking a stand on this important issue to support your constituents. It's times like this, when bodies like this listen and are willing to work on behalf of their constituents, that government is at its best, so thank you very much. I do have a couple concerns. First, safety. What happens when a storm or auto or truck accident takes down a pole or a line in a residential neighborhood or near a school? 69,000 watts is a lot more than is currently there, and I can imagine that a wire flopping around on a residential street or near an elementary school or a playground of a children's daycare could be quite dangerous to both life and property. I don't think that the safety of children and staff of our schools, including 2 public schools and 3 children's daycare centers, should be jeopardized for a more secure electric grid with no direct benefits to those people. No amount of electric reliability is worth anyone's life. But I'm here mainly to discuss property values. My research indicates that property values in the areas with these high voltage lines decline between 10 and 30%, mostly at the lower to mid-end of that range. The market value of the average home along the proposed route is just north of $500,000. So a 15% drop in property values would cost each homeowner approximately $75,000, which adds up to millions in lost property value, which would impact our entire town, as well as the same thing going on in Westfield and Garwood. PSE&G's main goal is to provide electricity in the lowest possible way so that they can maximize their profits. As I teach to my AP economics students, that's the goal of any company. The higher the profits, the happier the shareholders. But sometimes, in search of profit, external costs are imposed on third parties. In this case, it's the homeowners and schools along the proposed routes of these lines. PSE&G expects us to accept significantly reduced safety and property values so that they can provide cheap electricity and enhance their own profits. In reality, we are the ones who are going to be bearing the cost for cheaper electricity for everyone else. The rest of the county and the state get a free ride as those of us who are impacted pay the cost. PSE&G's corporate greed needs to be addressed. A small number of us should not be expected to pay the entire cost of upgrades to the power grid. This committee needs to do anything that it can within its power to make sure that the costs are spread fairly among all of your constituents. I understand our electric grid is a vital component of our lives, but we need to find a solution that does not negatively impact so many people in so great a way. If PSE&G really needs these lines, then it's incumbent upon them to find an alternative solution to the one proposed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Angela Petchow, 496 Lexington Ave, Cranford. I am on the impacted route. Today, we aren't given a choice or even given a say in what goes up and where with regards to the utilities. And PSE&G lied to us. For one, they told us that pentachlorophenol was not harmful to humans. At the PSE&G Roadshow last week, I spoke to the chemicals guy, as we referred to him as, and I asked him about the toxicity of pentachlorophenol. He actually said to us, you know that chloroseptic spray that you spray in your mouth? It's like that. Now, I did a lot of research, so did a lot of the other residents, and I replied, no, I don't think that is the same thing, and I definitely wouldn't spray PCP in my mouth. And then I asked him about those charred-looking poles around town. I said, what is that? He said, oh, that's creosote. I said, will that be used on the new poles? He said, no, that's banned. We don't use that anymore. And I said, wait a second. Well, then is there any remediation plan in place for swapping out the creosote poles with non-toxic poles? His reply was no, not to my knowledge. And they also state they'd be treated with diesel fuel. So we have all these toxic chemicals already out there and soon to be more, just free to leach its surroundings without any kind of containment. And these conversations were witnessed by multiple residents. These are the people that PSE&G has sent to inform us and outright lie to us. I've read the almost 300 and something page toxicology report on Penta from the EPA website. I've read other government and independent research documents. They all say that this stuff is bad. It's toxic. They state how easily absorbed PCP is in humans, in plants, in soil, and animals, and even short-term exposure can cause impaired renal function. They talk about infertility in young couples and developmental issues in children, leukemia, brain cancers, and other cancers. And PSE&G is also saying that Cranford won't even benefit from this project because they're running transmission lines. We're simply a pass-through town. I had breast lumpectomies in my early 20s, and I'm reminded of it every day when I look in the mirror. So even if you told me that there's a 1% chance my kids would get sick as a result of this project, then I am 100% not okay with that, and we are not okay with that. We need to hold PSE&G accountable. We need to give the control back to the towns to work with PSE&G and others to vet the projects, choose better routes, and challenge them to come up with cleaner and safer materials. We need to be the advocates of our own health and safety, and we're hoping that this board is the group of people to enable us to do so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Freeholders. My name is Kathleen Curran, and I reside at 514 Lexington Avenue in Cranford. I first want to thank you for your resolution regarding the PSE&G high voltage line that is proposed for Cranford, Westfield, and Garwood. I respectfully ask for your support in stopping PSE&G from running these lines through our residential streets. Tomorrow night, I will be at Relay for Life in Cranford. I walk to honor a number of very good friends who have survived and who have not survived cancer in our community. Like many towns in New Jersey, we have lost too many friends to cancer, and just in our small community, we have lost too many. Living with the power lines literally looming over our heads and knowing the risk of these power lines is just heartbreaking to me. PSE&G would like us to believe that these lines are 100% safe, but they are not. There are numerous studies with many researchers, including Dr. David Carpenter, who can correlate childhood leukemia as well as brain cancer to these high voltage lines. These studies cause major concern and decrease in home values. Our community has band together to appeal to PSE&G, asking them to use an alternate route for these lines that are not even enhancing the power to Cranford. The response given by a PSE&G representative at a community gathering was that changing the route would cost the company too much money. This is a ridiculous response, since we all know that the more this project costs, the more our bills will increase anyway. I am pleading to you as our representatives, please stand up for us and do not let PSE&G hold us hostage, unable to sell our homes if we choose to do so, and putting our families' health at risk so that they can take the easy route to save a dollar, and putting the ultimate price tags on our lives and our children's lives. No one should have the right to do that to another. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Lyubov Ursik, and I live on 197 Stoughton Avenue in Cranford. I'm going to have to cut my statement short in half because of the changes, so I'm just going to skip over every statement that one of my fellow residents made about the chemical concerns, about EMF, about electricity, and all of those things. So I just would like to bring your attention to the photos. I bring some visual aids with me. The accident picture was taken just this Saturday in Scotch Plains on a very not busy road on Woodland Avenue, which is across the Gulf Range. Here we're talking about Walnut Avenue, which is a super busy county road. So imagine this is happening there. Whose lives are we willing to sacrifice for this so-called improvement, which is yet to be proven to be needed? A family in a single house, or a class of 2 at Walnut Avenue School, or folks attending services in church or a temple on Walnut Avenue. As a mother of 2 children, I do not want to go to work every morning worried sick about them, either being crushed, electrocuted, or developing a cancer. I'm appalled at the way PSE&G has handled this whole so-called project. They tried to limit the exposure by sending very limited notifications to just a few residents on the route, as if we don't matter. Then they tried to control the flow of information out of the community center where the meeting was taking place by not allowing TV 35 of Cranford to actually video the exchanges between PSNG and the residents, as if we don't matter. Then, at the event itself, one of the executives actually had an audacity to say that should there be any further meetings, and I quote, "We will only speak to those who live directly on the route and are impacted." So as a mother, it is absolutely unconscionable to me that they would classify me as not impacted. As a parent, I believe I have a right to know about something of this magnitude that impacts my children's well-being. I have to have a say in it. But to them, we don't matter. So this whole improvement proposal put Cranford's parents like me in a position of excruciating decision. Run these lines as they suggested along the residential streets and right on top of Walnut Avenue School, or reroute along Conrail, which is 200 feet away from Hillside Avenue School. I will have a child in which one of those schools over the next 3 years. So which one of them am I supposed to choose to protect? Shouldn't I have a voice in this conversation? Now, I saw a number of the executives walking around the room, having private conversations in the corners and in the back hallway with our township elected officials. At no point, not one of them came in front of the residents, announced their name and title, and took any responsibility for what was happening in that room. And it was absolute chaos, let me tell you. I'm not going to waste my time on repeating the statements and reflections from that meeting I've heard from my fellow residents. So I can only say that my impression was that they were not there to speak to us. They made it blatantly obvious. They were there to shake important hands. So in conclusion, I want to tell you that I grew up in a communist country, former Soviet Union. And at that time, this is how the decisions for the masses were made, in a private room by shaking important hands. But this is not Soviet Union. Here, we as citizens have rights and voices and freedom of choice. PSNG needs to be reminded of that and the fact that they are a service provider. They service us and not the other way around.
Excuse me, ma'am, your time is up, but you know.
I have 2 sentences to
yeah,
finish.
Finish your
I'm
sentence.
sorry. This is very important. As you can see, I'm very passionate about it. And so I want to say that the profits do not supersede our rights as the citizens of Union County and United States of America. So I'm here tonight to ask you, our elected officials, to be our voice, the voice of the people, to be the champions of democracy, and to defend our rights, to come out with the resolution that will put PSNG on notice to show them that we matter, that you stand with us and stand behind us. And together we will not allow them to bulldoze their way through our town. Use your positions to push PSNG to an alternative solution for our energy needs. Thank you.
Commissioner O'Connor, welcome.
Good evening. Thank you for having this resolution on tonight. It is critically important to the residents of Cranford and everyone along the route. And I have a lot of respect for the Freeholder Board to bring this to a higher level of attention than the Township Committee has. I believe there is strength in numbers, and I think the municipalities joining with the Freeholder Board increases our chances of a cautiously optimistic change in the route and the process with PSENG. I attended the PSENG meeting last week, spoke with several of their representatives there, asked a few questions, talked to many residents. I think PSENG was taken aback by the amount of people that showed up, by their intelligent, insightful questions, and their passion about the issue. And I think because of that, it was very impactful on all of the people that were there. It truly, to me, demonstrates that when people come together and make their voices heard, they have a larger chance of having effect change than by staying quiet. And this is a really good example of the government process at work and having people be represented by the people that they elect to stand up for them. So I thank you so much for your time. I echo the comments of the residents from both Westfield and Cranford. And as I said, I do believe there is strength in numbers, and I think joining together is very important to affect the outcome of this project. And I would like to say it's very strange being on this side of the dais. So now I know how the residents feel when they come before the Township Committee.
You're doing pretty well.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Diana Maldonado, 1221 Orange Ave.
In about 4 more months, I will be moving to 310 Centennial. I'm part of the no high voltage Cranford, and I just gonna do a recap because pretty much everyone just pretty much stated what our main concern is. My husband had the biggest part on this section. Unfortunately, he couldn't be with us tonight, but I have a background on OSHA. As an OSHA safety trainer, my major concern was always PPE, proper protective equipment. None of PSE&G employees are allowed to climb any of those poles without proper PPE. So why the residents have to be exposed without any protective equipment? Why? These are our homes, okay? I am the mother of 3 kids. My youngest one is 10 months old. If we don't stop this now, what kind of town are we gonna have for our little ones? This has to be taken care, like right away, because this is not something that's like a shop that is gonna be open and they can close it down because of not following protocol. Once these power lines are installed, there's no turning back. The EMF that our children will be exposed, and I say children because sometimes, not sometimes, they have to go to school every day. They will be exposed. Even those that are not on the route will be exposed because their schools are. So this is the main concern. I'm sure everyone on the board has small little ones in their family. If you're not a parent or you're not a grandparent, you have nephews, you have nieces. Just think about the exposure that our kids are going to have by not having a protective equipment when they walk near these power lines. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Bryn Lloyd Ballard. I live at 329 Walnut Avenue in Cranford. I didn't come here tonight planning to speak, but I've been inspired by my neighbors who have talked here today, as well as the children who kicked off this meeting with beautiful poems about the value and beauty that trees give to our neighborhoods and the character that they give to our neighborhoods, and how trees are a stress reliever and an antidepressant for so many of us who live in concrete jungles or go to work in the city or spend most of our days in cubicles. Being able to go home to a place that allows us to be surrounded by nature in some small way. New Jersey is the most densely populated state. Union County is the 3rd most densely populated county in the state, and there's not a whole lot of opportunities to interact with nature. So having trees around us, I think, is one of the things that draws families like mine to want to live in Union County and benefit from all the beautiful streets and parks that we have. And I'm concerned that this plan will irrevocably change the character of our neighborhoods, including my street, Walnut Avenue. PSE&G's plan calls for cutting down, I think, 14 trees along my street and an adjoining street, and trimming an additional 40-something. Their plan in Westfield called for cutting down nearly 50 trees and trimming about the same amount. PSE&G says, well, we're going to plant 2 trees for every 1 tree that we cut down. And I think that's really disingenuous, because cutting down a large, mature tree that's been around for decades is not the same as planting a small sapling, which is going to take years, decades to mature. I think it will take a generation for our towns to get back to the level of foliage that we have now if PSE&G is allowed to cut down all of these trees. Another concern I have is Walnut Avenue is a very busy street, and there are lots of big trucks barreling down our road all day. Last year, one of these trucks flying by my house snagged the power lines that connected my house to the power lines that went across the road, and ripped those lines off of my roof and put them into the road. And it was like that for several hours that day. And I don't know anything about voltage or electricity, but I have concerns about what that would have meant had those lines been of a higher power in accordance with what PSE&G plans to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Kurt Kraus, Dr. Kurt Kraus, Cranford. I would expect the County of Union to fully research the effects of high voltage lines in health and safety regards. Don't rely on the BPU to protect the public or cede control to them. health risks are present and the full extent may not be clear at this time. Based on the company's misinformation and the health and safety risks, delaying this project and rethinking its need is the prudent thing to do.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Mary O'Flynn. I'm also a Cranford resident and proud Union County resident. And first I want to start off by saying thank you. I think the fact that this resolution has been put together means a lot to all of us. I do think, unfortunately, because we're up against PSE&G, we're going to need more. I know there was a concern about the jurisdiction, particularly, you know, Walnut Avenue is a county road, and I was looking at the administrative code, and I know one of the things that the freeholders are responsible for is the instrumentality, the use, the benefit of those areas and our town, and this is clearly something that I believe falls within that. In addition, the Bureau of Roads, Bridges, one of their functions is to maintain county roads in a clean, safe condition for passage free of all obstructions and hazards. I think it's clear that this is a hazard. As a mother with children in both Walnut Avenue School and Livingston Avenue School, this power line going right in front of Walnut Avenue, as somebody mentioned, is a grave concern. Not only does Walnut have kindergarten through second graders, it also has 62 preschoolers, the majority of which are special needs, and that wing faces power lines. I don't think our most vulnerable kids should be subjected to any more risks. And I just want to say that I think the residents coming together has been really a testament to how important this issue is, and that the show that PSE&G put on at our community center, it was a sham, but I think it actually emboldened us to go further. So I thank you, and I really request that you stand with us and take this, you know, the full fight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Christine Javernicki. I live at 444 Lexington Avenue in Cranford. So we need your help really quickly. Cliff Note version of this, push for the Conrail related route. It's away from everyday life. There's no trees in the way. There's no trees that have to be removed from people's homes. There's already an existing route for 230 kV lines. When PSE&G showed up, they weren't even aware of what was on the train lines. When we asked what their plan B was, there was no plan B. If this is really about reliability, wouldn't a direct route from the train line away from busy streets and trees be more appropriate? So basically, after renting in 10 years, I just purchased my home in March. I can tell you with certainty, I would not purchase a home with a gigantic pole feet away from my front door, 30 feet higher than what's already there. And not even that, but the height of it is so much closer to people's bedrooms. So on top of everything like that you've already heard, I don't think that's appropriate. It affects my whole town, not just the people on the direct route. I went to the PSE&G meeting held for my community. It was an absolute joke, as you heard a little bit with the residents before. I expressed my concern over pentachlorophenol, the chemical used to coat these poles. Even though I do not have any kids in the school system personally, I'm highly concerned with the new poles setting up shop directly in front of 2 grade schools. Rest assured, the PSE&G staff member told me specifically, the same amount of aspirin will kill you before the same amount of penta. He looked me right in the eye and told me that. I was disgusted at the response. I have a science degree and I've worked extensively in pharmaceuticals. You can't say that. To even compare the two, I wasn't sure if I should be offended or shocked at the ignorance of that statement. He saw my expression and stated the creosote on my current pole in front of my house was probably more dangerous to me than the new one going up. I then told him that the pole in front of my house was not one of the ones being replaced. The line's running underground from me. So I don't really have the same problem that many of the other residents have, where it's going up 30 feet taller. So that in itself, it was just awkward silence. Okay, so my town deserves better than this. And My town deserves legitimate answers. Pentachlorophenol is designated by the EPA as a probable human carcinogen. The EPA directly states on their website, Penta is now a restricted use pesticide and is no longer available to the general public. Human studies suggest an association between exposure to pentachlorophenol and cancer. I just watched my mom die of cancer in 2017. We should be limiting exposure to any type of risk factor we know. It's common sense. A deeper look. You know what? I'm yellow. I'm going to go right to this. From a county perspective, I am hoping you hear our concerns and help us not in just selecting the easiest route possible to run these lines, but to select the safest appropriate route. Please urge PSE&G to step up from the cost-effective tactics and reconsider their route. The response from the company is that these poles have already been installed elsewhere in other communities. That's not a good enough rational response. Exposure should be limited as much as possible and away from everyday life, which includes neighbors walking their dogs on our wonderful neighborhood sidewalks and children playing.
Thank you.
Reason, please see how this is directly impacting all of our communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, Freeholders. My name is Nicole Quinn. I live at 316 Walnut Avenue. I'd like to start by thanking you all for your resolution. It's very encouraging to all the people in our town and the related towns that are affected by this route. Fellow residents have gathered here tonight to discuss the serious concerns with PSE&G's high voltage power lines plan. I come here to ask you to take our considerations both seriously and thoughtfully. One thing PSE&G has not done in this entire spectacle is take the considerations of the people who will be most directly affected by their plan. The PSE&G take into consideration that in Cranford alone, their proposed route will be in front of over 200 residences, 2 elementary schools, 2 places of worship, 2 parks, and 3 daycares. Did they take into consideration that there is a family in our town that will have to question every night when they go to sleep, is my family potentially at health risk because we choose to live in our home because 18 feet from our bedroom windows are high voltage lines now? Did PSE&G take the residents into consideration when they gave Westfield residents less than 24 hours notice before they started trying to cut down trees in front of their homes? Did PSE&G give any consideration when they did not let any of the parents at the affected schools on these routes know these power lines were planned to go in? Did they give any consideration when they held a meeting for the public to inform us when they actually lied and gave contradictory statements to their own FAQ page they provided for us? And what about when they insulted us by saying, we're inadequately prepared for this meeting because we didn't expect such a turnout? They knew very well that there were over 200 impacted homes on the route. How many people did they think weren't going to come? When asked about Penta, they actually said, we're using it because it's cheaper and more readily available. They don't care about health concerns. They're doing whatever is easiest for them. And what about when we asked, why are these lines going in front of homes and schools when you have an option of Conrail? PSE&G actually said, if there was an accident, freight cargo could get damaged. So the residents of Cranford left that meeting with the impression that PSE&G values inanimate freight cargo more than human life, which is an unacceptable statement. I could talk for hours about all the consideration PSE&G has not given us. So I come before you to ask that you please do everything you have in your power to make sure they do what's right and urge them to use the prospective route of Conrail, which is truly the most least impactful to all the towns considered. PSE&G is a public service company, yet it is appalling they have taken no action to take the consideration of the public they actually serve. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, David Pringle, 333 Walnut Avenue, Cranford, and I apologize because I was supposed to let Nicole close, but I didn't get up fast enough, so I'm in trouble now. I want to also thank you, the freeholders, for their quick response the past 2 weeks. It's especially gratifying given where we were at a month ago. There was some misunderstandings exactly what the project was, what the route was going to be, and then we had the misinformation campaign by PSE&G. And the response in the last 2 weeks by you, the Township Committee on a bipartisan basis, Assemblyman Bracknick, and the Board of Ed has really been gratifying. As a result, PSE&G is now listening. We're confident they are seriously looking at an alternative route. But we need to keep the pressure on. So this resolution is a great start to that. Without that, we hope you'll strengthen your efforts even further. We would like to see the resolution strengthened to not just support the town's efforts, but actively push PSE&G yourselves, especially for most of the route is a county road. And so there you have more jurisdiction than the town in that area. And as I'm not a lawyer, but Justin cited several cases. He is a lawyer. We do believe it's pretty clear you have more than the limited authority that the resolution currently suggests you have. As has been attested, there are real risks. There is real costs, real decreased values in this proposal. Environmental, health, economic, and aesthetic. There's some dispute, and folks, reasonable people can disagree exactly how great the cost and the risk, but the fact that there is real cost and there is real loss in value is not disputable. And as currently proposed, a small minority is covering a disproportionate burden for the greater benefit. And so all we're asking for is an equitable distribution of that burden. If it's going to cost a little more to go another way, then PSE&G has a base of 3 million people. It shouldn't be focused instead on 200 residences in the larger community that will also lose some property values and have higher property tax rates. The goal here is to minimize the risk. We are not opposed to high voltage lines per se. This particular route, especially when alternatives exist that pose much less risk. Less residential, the railway has a much greater setbacks, and because of the existing 230 kilovolt line, for all you fans of physics, you may recognize that a 230 kV line is so dominant that putting a 69 kV line right next to it won't increase the magnetic field. So there's no increased exposure if we put it on that line. There is increased exposure if we put it on the proposed route. And I know how responsive the county can be. I live on 333 Walnut, again, a county road. My first day, I had the pleasure of seeing sidewalks marked, which was my sidewalk mark that I had to fix, and which the county did. The county's been very responsive in fixing our trees when they fall down. So we're asking you to be our heroes, use your bully pulpit, and help us push PSE&G even further. Thank you again for everything you've already done.
Thank you. So may I have a motion to adopt resolutions 2019-390 through 2019-417?
So moved.
Second. Moved by Freeholder Granado, seconded by Freeholder Garrettson? Yes. Okay. And Clerk of the Board, please call the roll.
Freeholder Estrada.
Yes.
Freeholder Garrettson.
Yes.
Freeholder Granados. Aye. Freeholder Palmieri Muedad.
Aye.
Freeholder Staton.
Yes.
Freeholder Williams.
Aye.
Chair Kowalski.
Yes.
Chair, you have 7 votes in the affirmative on all resolutions.
Thank you very much. Now, well, actually, before I open up for comment on any matter, I would just like to thank everyone who came to talk about PSE&G and everybody who reached out to us, whether by email or some other way. And we're listening. I have heard also that PSE&G is considering alternative routes. So we all will work towards a better outcome for all of us, and the freeholders certainly appreciate all of the time and effort all of you have put into studying this and bringing it forward for the public. So thank you, and keep in touch. So now we'll move to the regular public comment portion, and I imagine.
Can we comment on what they said or wait to the end?
Oh, excuse me, Freeholder Garrettson, do you want to say something?
I do. I want to respond because there was a lot of very passionate comments tonight. I've been specifically in touch with several folks from PSE&G, but what we're not doing is we're not documenting or saying who you spoke to. So I believe that Michael Coyle has been the representative from PSE&G, correct? That's our. But Michael Coyle is the person that you should actually be emailing as well as Eileen Leahy. This is on their website. So we need to, number one, make sure that we put the attention and copy us, not send it to us, but send it to PSE&G and have the freeholders as backup. Because I think what we heard tonight was several layers to what is the issue, but the challenge is you must contact PSE&G directly. And I think that's what we're not doing yet. Yes, there was a community meeting, so when I spoke to Coyle, I spoke to some of the other folks. The challenge again is that the words you're using, that they're being dishonest, distrustful, those need to go up the ranks, and that's not happening yet. So I really am encouraging, I'm gonna take this information back to the people I'm talking to because it's very, very offensive. So I wanna appreciate, you know, the conversations in this room, but understand that to make the next movement or the next step, you gotta take it up. So number one, make sure that we understand and know who we're talking to in those rooms. And even if they're talking to other elected officials, document, right? Because coming here is a first step, but again, we need to make sure that we have the ammunition because we know who you're dealing with. That makes sense. The second thing that I wanted to share, there is a lot of conversation about these informational documents that are being shared. We received them, all the freeholders. It's not enough. So I agree with you. I think that I'm so proud to be a Union County resident right now because you have really done your due diligence, your homework. But again, we need to be a model or represent for the state because what I'm being told is that this issue is happening all around the state. They didn't think it was a big deal. Then Union County stepped in, right? So you clearly are demonstrating that you know the facts, you're sharing the facts, but the point is, if we don't mobilize and really say that this is the information that you have conveyed, so whether you're bringing your medical background, your legal backgrounds, or just being a human story, we need to make sure that the folks, the powers that be, clearly understand, and we have your back. Every freeholder here is very, very intentional, but we want to also make sure you know that it's not about what jurisdiction, it's more about how do you make sure what are the alternatives, because that's what I think we were asking. We were saying, we understand that this is your plan, but what can you do next? So that would be my recommendation. Like I said, I'm definitely going to share via our chair and all the members on the Freeholder Board. We're going to share what we heard tonight, but we have to make sure that it's directed in the right way. So I hope that makes sense. If you have other questions, I'll be here after, but again, we do support what you're doing, but we have to make sure it lands in the right hands. And so I do want to lastly say that the person who is the representative in Union County is newer in this role. So when you look on the website, Sheridan is no longer the representative. It's actually, my understanding, Michael Coyle. So that's who we should direct it to, and his boss.
All right. Thank you, Freeholder. So now, if anyone wants to comment on any matter relating to government.
Virginia Zacharides, Cranford, New Jersey. I just wanted to say that I actually reached out to the CEO, the CFO, the COO, the public relations chair of PSE&G. So if you did want to reach out to Ralph Izzo, he's the CEO, and they all have this same extension. So if you know their name, you can know their email too. So it's Ralph, R-A-L-P-H .IZZO at pseng.com. I also copied Ralph Izzo without the dot at pseng.com. So you can write him. There's so many people that are actually just listed on the site. I emailed daniel.craig at pseng. So I think the point is that we are reaching out to the right people, but maybe you guys need to direct us a little bit more on that.
So this is the document. This is who I would refer to first.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Good evening.
Freeholders. Dave Pilmenstein, 2006 Park Place in Springfield. I regret coming here with commentary regarding neither trees nor the lack of trees. As you all very well know, we have an election coming up, and that's really fun stuff. I have observed candidates and slates leveraging public property for their own campaign purposes. The The name of the campaign is not relevant, the column is not relevant, but I wanted to know if the freeholders had any commentary regarding A, the legality of such actions, and B, the general appropriateness of such actions. So, thank you.
With reference to the use, I know what is being referenced, and it was brought to our attention. We have looked at it, and we've brought that matter to the attention of the Board of Elections and asked them to take appropriate action.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
Excuse me. Good evening. My name is Ronald McCrae from Rahway, New Jersey. Hopefully I'm within order. I have a couple points I'd like to bring out, nothing to do with the resolutions here. So if I may.
Yes, as long as they're government related.
Well, it deals with the county high road on East Hazelwood. And it's very, very, very important. As we know, if East Hazelwood is a county road, it's my understanding, and the speed limit is 25, on a regular basis, you have not only vehicles, cars, but you have commercial trucks, 18-wheelers, doing anywhere from 40 and up, close to 60. These are facts. Now, it's been several years ago where the 18-wheelers was coming down and was ripping down the telephone wires. And so it's my understanding that they're supposed to go down Randolph Road, but that has been ignored over the past 10 years easy. And so everyone wants to come down East Hazelwood. There are a lot of kids in that area because there's a park and they cross. So doing 40, 50, and 60, even as of last week, the cab of 18-wheeler, I know, had to be doing close to 55. That's without exaggeration. The reasons why is because Lawrence and East Hazelwood, if that light is green and they're coming from St. George direction, then it's almost a straight highway to them. So they book it, only to get down to Hart Street to veer off. I think it's a detriment to everyone because, again, if the rules are the rules and we have to abide by those, then everyone should adhere to those rules, and even holding Rahway Police Department to not only pull over a vehicle who's doing over the speed limit with a ticket, but also these trucks to stop them from coming down it and speeding. The other point, right quick and short, because there's a crosswalk from Stockton and East Hazelwood, kids cross, and JFK have kids crossing. They have to peep around to see what cars is coming. The vehicles doesn't pay attention to the crosswalk. They're booking. I don't know if the county could put something in between and force them on the speed limit, because there is a posting, 25 miles per hour. That's what's important. So again, I'm hoping that the county itself would take due notice to this and make this a priority. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Craig. It is a county road, East Hazelwood. County roads, maintenance of the roads is the county's responsibility. Law enforcement is your local police in Rahway, but you can speak to our Director of Public Safety, and I'm sure he would be happy to have a word with your police authorities, and please give him the details about that particular intersection too. Yeah. Let me just note here that we do maintain Walnut Avenue in Cranford. I proposed, well, at the request of residents some years ago, we did reduce the speed limit. You may remember that it was upwards of 35 a while ago, and even though it's not always observed by drivers, we do have a 30-mile-an-hour limit on Walnut, which goes down to 25 near the school. So there's a little progress. now we've got these new challenges. So, any other comments about matters in general? Yes.
Good evening, freeholders.
Good evening.
This is county related because back in 2018, you granted me a grant for poetry. So you got the young children and you have the oldster here.
I'm sorry, I remember you coming before, but would you please tell us your name and
Oh,
town
I'm
of
sorry.
residence?
I'm Christy Dobelis. I live at 205 Rankin Street in Elizabeth. And the program started back in 2018, and it's been very interesting, and I'm very grateful that you gave me this opportunity. And I come here tonight to give you part of what the grant produced. It's called the chapbook, and I tried to twist people's arms to write haiku, which is only 17 syllables. I was very impressed with these young people. Everything you read is, it brings wealth and meaning to our lives. So poetry, and even on television, when you watch the news, they're reading a prompter. So I've brought a little haiku chapbook for all of you, and
Thank you very much. Yeah. If you wanted, if you could just give the pile to the clerk, and he'll make sure we each get one. Thank you very much, and I'm glad you used the grant well.
It was fun.
Okay. If there's no further comment, I'm going to. Oh, Mr. Patterson. Okay.
Good evening, Chair Kowalski, ladies and gentlemen of the Freeholder Board, Bruce Patterson, Garwood. To the high voltage power line, somebody made a comment that PSE&G said they will only speak to those that are along the route. So I guess the suggestion for those not along the route is to say, well, I'm buying a house along the route, and I'm concerned. So maybe that's a little excuse that they could use so that people off of the route can actually get to speak to PSE&G. I don't know if you can ban speech like that, but that could be the suggestion. The poetry, which was interesting because it looked like about 30 to 40% of the children that won awards were actually from Garwood. So, I'm proud of my town.
Congratulations.
The New Jersey Transit, if you're going to advocate for things, I think the first thing that really should be advocated for is the single platform transfer, where the train, where you don't have to run down. I think it's 1 and 5. Run down 5, get on 1, whatever it is. So it should actually be the same, the two trains meeting on a single platform. So that should be something that maybe you should be advocating for by resolution, and however you talk to the authorities at New Jersey Transit. So that would be good for the commuters. This is interesting, that we're now faced with the high voltage lines coming through our communities, and obviously people are outraged, and so they should be. But what we're looking at that is really, it's collateral damage to what the whole state is facing, and that is the overdevelopment that is coming through with the affordable housing mandates, and I'm sure everybody is paying attention that, for each affordable housing unit, the developers wanting to put in 4, 5, 6 times market rate. And so we have a state where I'm on this overall committee, Citizens Improving Affordable Housing, and we're fighting or trying to ameliorate this issue. And we're looking at about 250,000 affordable housing units that the state is obligated to build, and with that, there are probably about 1 million luxury rate units will be built as collateral to these affordable housing units. So there's nothing wrong with affordable housing, but it's all this overbuilding that is coming with it, the overdevelopment of the 1 million units. And of course, our infrastructure has to be upgraded, and part of that is, of course, the electrical infrastructure, and now we're facing these higher voltage lines. In addition, there's also the high pressure gas lines that are being installed in the streets that everybody is aware of, the yellow pipe. So that's a signal that we have some major developments coming down the line.
Thank you.
Has that 750 Walnut.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson.
we're looking at all of this being collateral damage to the overbuilding and that yes, we're going to fight the high voltage lines, but we really should be fighting all this overdevelopment that the developers are actually pushing on each of the towns.
Okay, thank you.
That's really the main concern.
Okay. Thank you. Just on New Jersey Transit, with freeholders have been involved with the Raritan Valley Rail Coalition, and we regularly request same platform transfer. And Freeholder Estrada is the leader of the North Jersey Transportation Authority and pushes for more funding for rail as well. And we have supported Newark Mayor Baraka's efforts to improve Newark train station. It doesn't look like that's going to happen anytime soon, but we have hope. So, okay. We do have a need for executive session tonight, so I'm sorry that we're not going to take the time to talk with you right at this moment. All right. Okay. But my hope is that our executive session is not going to go on too long. If you do want to talk with us, you're welcome to wait. But we have a matter that needs to be resolved tonight. So I'll ask County Council to make a statement regarding executive session.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act, a public body may go into executive session for the purpose of discussing certain enumerated subjects. This board now wishes to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing attorney-client privilege communication and discussions relative to a possible settlement in the matter of Susan Pearl and Cynthia Pisano versus the County of Union. The minutes of the open public session shall be separated from the minutes of the executive session. Minutes of the executive session redacted as appropriate and necessary shall be made available in approximately 30 days. The clerk to the board shall retain the original minutes until such time as the confidential limitations have been removed, at which time they shall be made available. Upon the affirmative vote of a majority of members present, the board may retire into executive session. Upon the board's return, it will not take any formal action on the matter discussed.
Thank you. Oh, and
you're welcome.
And most people have left, but let me just mention before everybody leaves that if you weren't able to finish your comments, you can email the remainder of your comments to us. We're reading the emails that everyone sends us, or get a copy to the clerk of the board. So thanks again, and may I have a motion to enter into executive session? Second? Second. Rebecca Williams, moved by second and moved by Freeholder Granados. Clerk of the board, please call the roll.
Freeholder Estrada.
Yes.
Freeholder Garrettson.
Yes.
Freeholder Granados.
Aye.
Freeholder Palmieri Muedad.
Aye.
Freeholder Staten.
Yes.
Freeholder Williams.
Aye.
And Chair Kowalski.
Yes.
Chair, you have 7 votes in the affirmative.
Thank you. And so we are moving into executive session. So we have a motion to return from executive session.
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Rebecca Freeholder Williams, seconded by Freeholder Staten. Clerk of the board, please call the roll.
Freeholder Estrada.
Yes. To return.
Freeholder Garrettson. Freeholder Granados.
Aye.
Freeholder Palmieri Muedad.
Aye.
Freeholder Staten.
Yes.
Freeholder Williams.
Aye.
And Chair Kowalski.
Yes.
Chair, you have 7 votes in the affirmative to return from executive.
Thank you. County Council, is there anything for you to announce as a result of executive session?
No comments at this time. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. If freeholders might like to make comments, it's been a long night, but if you have something you'd like to say, Freeholder Granados.
Thank you, Chair. Just to remind residents that Palcus is joining with the Freeholder Board to host a flag raising for Portugal Day on May 30th, so we invite residents to come at 6:30. And just a brief comment in reference to PCNG. I know our Chair Kowalski has been working strongly in making sure that all of us as freeholders, we continue to listen to the voices of our residents And we are an outlet for each one of you and continue to make sure we're working for you. So we appreciate your emails, and we'll continue to make sure that your voices are heard through this Freeholder board to state, federal, and other legislators, and making sure we're working together to make sure your voices are heard. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Freeholder. Freeholder Williams?
Yeah, just two things. One is to remind everyone that this coming Tuesday from 5:30 to 7:30 at McManus Middle School in Linden, we will be hosting a countywide public meeting on the opioid crisis, and it will provide those who attend with firsthand reports on the impact the opioid crisis has had here in Union County, as well as tools that are available to us to fight it. You can contact Karen Dinsmore, Assistant Director in Human Services, at 908-527-4809. And the one other note is just to remind everyone, and I'm sure we'll remind them next week, that Rhythm and Blues by the Brook will be taking place on Saturday, June 1st from 12 noon to 6 p.m. in Cedar Brook Park. It's a free outdoor festival, and we have Sheila E. as the headliner, and we have Thomas McClary and the Commodore's Experience. Some of you may know Thomas McClary wrote almost all of the best songs, I should say, of the Commodores. We also will be having a tribute to Howlin' Wolf, and Plainfield's own superstar, Bindi Leibowitz of NBC's The Voice will be our local talent. So come out and support. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
All right. Thank you, Freeholder Williams. Freeholder Staten?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be very quick. Thank everyone for coming out this evening. I just want to bring to the attention of everyone, we have the garden fair. If you happen to visit the Sensory Friendly Trail this Sunday, I encourage you to stop by the annual Masters Gardeners Garden Fair and Plant Sale. It takes place every year right near the grounds of the Trailside Center. Admission to the fair is free, and all of the proceeds go to fund community service programs in Union County. Finally, I would like to remind all business women in Union County that there are only a few days left to register for our 7th annual Union County Women Means Business Skills Building Seminar and Networking event, taking place next Wednesday, May 22nd at the Clubhouse at Union County's Galloping Hill Golf Course in Kenilworth. More than 200 women attended last year's event, and we are anticipating another great turnout. Pre-registration for this event is required by visiting ucnj.org/UCMB. The $40 fee per person includes breakfast and lunch, as well as breakout sessions, networking opportunities, giveaways, and a chance to win prizes. I would like to thank our generous sponsors for the event, and also to thank ShopRite for their generous donation. So if you can attend, I encourage you to. I have attended for the last 3 years, and it really is a great event. Thank you and good night.
Thank you very much. I had to consider banking my time, but unfortunately, after tonight's event, I think there's a couple of things I want to express. I think it is interesting and exciting to see that people in our communities are reacting to those particular things that have impacted them. You know, when I think of PSE&G and the knowledge that they are looking to either build 2 nuclear power plants in southern New Jersey, or to get an extension for an additional 15 years to the one they already own, it only tells me the importance of having people working together to try to overcome some of those problems. Now, this I learned in an NACO conference where the ex-governor of New Jersey, Mrs. Whitman, was at, and she was, at the time, I don't know if she still does or not, she's a lobbyist for the nuclear power industry. But it was very, very interesting, and I'm making the correlation because today maybe the high polls in Westfield and Cranford, but this could also escalate to bigger problems in the state of New Jersey when it comes to nuclear power. I'm sure everybody has a different idea about how good or how not good it is, but I would, bring that up just for general knowledge. The people of both Westfield and Cranford, no doubt, are well informed. They have done their studies. I mean, creosote we find not only in the poles, but every railroad, what do they call those cross beams on the railroad tracks, have creosote. They used to use it back started I think in the 20s, and continuing even to today to a certain limited environments. But it's funny, what happens is when many lines are taken apart, people use those creosote rail tracks and use them for their gardens and things like that, which is also what I consider a no-no, because it is very much is carcinogen. It's got a lot of tremendous amount of chemicals that are really bad for not only the environment but the individuals. But I commend the people who came out tonight. They seem to have all the information relatively at hand. They have done their research, and of course, it is important for people to come out and share their concerns so that we as elected officials can act upon them. And I think that was a sign that, and I want to thank the chairwoman who came out with the resolution in support of these ideas. Now, there are plenty of other opportunities or hurdles that will be taking place between now and to see what happens, because the Board of Public Utilities does play a role in this particular types of situations, and they're governed a little differently than most other entities are. So hopefully things will be resolved to the favor of the individuals who live there. The issue about going underground, well, I don't know that PSE&G can assess the value of those pipes for that particular area. I mean, if they should really take it out through everybody in the state of New Jersey, because when things happen, like it happened during Sandy, they prorated throughout the state. So anyway, that's my comments, and I thank you very much, Madam Chair, for coming out with the resolution.
Thank you,
Thank you, Chair. The Ashbrook Golf Course in Scotch Plains has been a treasured part of Union County's public recreation facility since its opening in 1953. I'm happy to report that work is complete on a new clubhouse at Ashbrook, including a new restaurant and pro shop. It is the latest in a series of projects undertaken within the past 10 years that have streamlined and upgraded our public golf facilities. Today, Ashbrook and our Galloping Hill Golf Course in Kenilworth are outstanding community assets, inclusive and open to all the public, and known throughout the region for their playability and high standards for customer service. We will be holding an official ribbon cutting and grand opening for the new Ashbrook Clubhouse on Wednesday evening, May 22nd, from 5 to 6 p.m. Everyone is invited, and I hope to see some of you there. I also just want to take a moment to thank all of the residents of Westfield, Cranford, and Garwood who came tonight with extensive research on the PSE&G power lines. As a Westfield resident myself and the mom of young children, I share all of your concerns, and I truly hope that PSE&G takes into serious consideration the safe and most appropriate route for these power lines. So I want to thank them again for coming, and thank you, Chair.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I want to again echo the comments of Freeholder Estrada, and thanking you also, Freeholder Hudak and Kimberly Moodad, for last time bringing this to our attention, and having Freeholder Staton and Williams join on, and the rest of the freeholders vote on tonight in support of the PSE&G issue. Clearly, it is a very complex issue, but I think that what we heard tonight, what we're hearing from PSE&G, I think that there is going to be conversation that has not been had. So I'm very optimistic that this really can be a very transformative conversation for them, because I think PSE&G truly needs to hear and understand where these neighbors, residents are coming from the county. So I was very encouraged tonight, and I'm just very pleased that we were able to take a step, but really also empower the residents to be able to take it directly to PSE&G. So I do look forward to hearing back from PSE&G and seeing how they're going to handle so that they can take the lead. The other thing I want to share tonight on a little bit of a lighter note is we have a ribbon cutting this coming Saturday at 11 a.m. It will be at Conant Park in Hillside. It is a lovely update. It's an inclusive space where all children and families can come together as a community. There will be ADA ramps, decks, spiral stairs, therapeutic rings, and so much more. So I do hope there will be a number of freeholders who are able to join in on Saturday at 11 o'clock. And I also just want to share that it's a true gem of the county park system. So we want to really encourage those who are available to please come on out on Saturday. And those are my comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Freeholder. I would also like to thank my colleagues for your support on bringing the PSE&G high voltage lines issue further in the public eye. I'd also like to thank the residents who reached out to us. We heard their concerns. Oh, I forgot to turn my microphone on. All right. We've heard the concerns of the residents, and as a freeholder and a resident of Cranford, I want all the residents of all the towns along the lines that we stand with them. And I'd like to add that PSE&G really could have done a much better job of outreach on this project. It was pointed out that they really did not communicate well with the municipalities, the residents, the county, and they fell short, and I think they've been put on notice that they have to do a lot better. Residents have a lot of concerns about the project, including health and public safety, and including the question about the potentially dangerous chemicals. So I think what we're likely to see is PSE&G is going to slow things down and rethink this project. So maybe put more of the lines underground, or explore alternate routes that are not near residences, schools, or public buildings. But most importantly, they need to listen to the residents and find a way to provide electric power without risking our residents' health and welfare. So we're looking forward to that. I will let you know that shared services is a big part of what we promote as freeholders to save money for all of our municipalities. And we have come out with a new directory listing hundreds of the county's shared service opportunities, and it's available for free download on the county website, ucnj.org. Thanks especially to Deputy County Manager Amy Wagner in the Department of Economic Development, and you can get a copy of the directory if you want a hard copy by emailing her, awagner@ucnj, or calling 908-527-4802. And next week, we have a presentation relating to rail travel again. This time, it will be someone from the Regional Plan Association with their report, A Preventable Crisis, the Economic and Human Costs of a Hudson River Rail Tunnel Shutdown. This will be here in the Freeholder Meeting Room starting at 7 o'clock, just before we start our regular public meeting of the Freeholders. So all Union County residents are invited to attend. There'll be an opportunity for residents to comment on the plan. The Raritan Valley Rail Coalition is co-sponsoring this event, and it's sure to be a very informative report. I think many of us know that we need to do a lot of work on the Hudson River Rail Tunnel, so we'll find out more next week. I think that's it for my comments, so I will ask for a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Freeholder Staton. And a second?
Second.
Seconded by Freeholder Williams. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Thanks, everyone, for a productive evening.
Cheers.
Good night, Jamie.
You want to see a little longer?